Hey everyone, this is Dr. Casey Johnson, and thank you so much for taking time to listen to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I know you're going to love today's episode with Gary Whitaker. Gary is doing some amazing work, so I'm excited to have him on to share a story with you guys. If you've been loving the Unlock Wellness podcast, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Also, be sure to follow me on social media to keep up with the latest podcast episodes. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My username across the board is at Dr. Casey Johnson. That's DrKaseyJohnsson. You can also check out my website at drcaseyjohnson.com. It has all of the past podcast episodes and more information about each guest under the Listen tab. While you're on my site, be sure to check out the Shop tab where you can check out my first book of my Healthy Children's Book series. Thank you again for listening. I hope this episode leaves you feeling inspired to start making positive changes to your health. Now it's time for today's episode. I hope you love my conversation with Gary Whitaker. Welcome to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I'm Dr. Casey and excited for today's guest. I'm here with Gary Whitaker, better known by Coach G. And I was connected to Coach G through past podcast guest, Kat from Cat Fitness. So be sure to go back and check out his episode as well because he's amazing. But Coach G is doing some amazing work. He's recently opened an all-vegan gym called PlantBased Fitness in Oakland, California, and that offers services such as private fitness and mindset training, vegan nutrition and accountability coaching, cooking classes, corporate wellness, a plant-based kids club. And Gary is not only transforming other lives with a plant-based diet, but he's also transformed his own health and life. So I'm just excited to have him on to share a story with you guys and just everything that he's working on. So Coach G, thank you so much for taking time to come on. I'm excited to have you.
Oh yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Yeah, and before we get into all the details of your new gym, let's start with your backstory. First off, where you're from and what your own personal health and wellness journey has looked like. Were you always into just health and nutrition at a young age as a kid?
Well, it's funny that you asked that because when I think back to when I was like a little kid, and it was two things that I always had when I was a little kid. Number one was I had this blue coat, right? And everywhere I would go, I would always have this blue coat. And the next thing that I had in my hand always was a red, delicious apple. And it took me to think about that a long time ago. I was talking to my aunt and she was like, yeah, you used to always have an apple. And I remember the apple, but it just reminded me. So when I think back about it, I did have some solid, healthy habits as a kid. But, growing up in East Oakland, I grew up in East Oakland. We had the corn nut factory that wasn't that far from us. We had the Schwinger's bakery that wasn't that far. And it was this church and they used to always drop off the little cheese pinwheel things. They used to always drop those off, and I could say for the most part, with all due respect to my mom, she just didn't know, you know what I mean? So we did we ate a boatload of processed food. As I got more into food and understanding it, we probably ate a lot of GMO stuff, a lot of cancer causing stuff. And, we pretty much had the same diet for a long time. Thanksgiving, it was just like the normal family Thanksgiving. We ate the stuff that was provided, so it was macaroni and cheese, greens, all type of soul food. And so that was kind of like my diet growing up. So I wasn't, I hear about some parents or some people's parents where they had like a healthy parent that was like a hippie or something like that. And I was like, nah, that wasn't my mom. But, that was kind of like my life growing up. And so, for me, I was always like, active. I always, like, from a young kid, I always went to the park to play stickball, play basketball a lot. I played middle school ball and I got the name. I never forget it. I had a nickname because I had one shot from half court and it went in, right?
You were the Steph Curry of your time.
Yeah. I was Steph before Steph, but they called me Gary Long Bomb Whitaker. And it was funny because I had one shot, but at the end of the day, I was always competitive and I always had friends that were active. So I was always around active people. And, when I got out of college, I graduated with my associates in visual communications. And then I figured out that I didn't want to do that because it only paid like $10 an hour. And so then from that point on, I started going into corporate America. I did some sales jobs. And this was the point where my health started to, it didn't necessarily decline because like I said, I've always been in good health. I've never been to the hospital for any major health issues. My major thing has been weight. And so what happened was I was working this job. It was stressful. And at this time, what's really interesting is that I didn't really realize what stress I was going through during that time. You know what I mean? Because how when you sleep and you don't really get it, you get like 10 to 12 hours of sleep, but you still feel tired. I didn't know that was like a sign of like being fatigued or being stressed. I just thought that's how it was supposed to feel. And so then what happened was, our job, they were basically like feeding us like garbage. So, it was like whenever they wanted us to work overtime, they would order pizza or barbecue or, just all type of bad stuff.
Right.
And it was one day where I was just like, I was sitting at my desk and I felt sleepy and I was tired. I was like, I had enough, I was like, that was kind of like my breaking point. And so it motivated me to, I was friends because I was a member at the YMCA. That was when I was in college. So I had like a $19 a month membership, which was the sweet spot, and I also was friends with a trainer there. And so what happened was I was talking to him and I was like, I've been going to the gym consistently. And what happened was I wasn't changing. I was getting stronger, but my body composition wasn't changing. And so what he did was he told me, he was like, hey, come back and see me on Monday. It was a Friday when I went to go see him. He was like, come back and see me on Monday and I'll give you something to try out. And so, me, I was like, nah, I was like, let me have it now. I was like, I'm ready to go now. And he was like, nope. He was like, come back and see me on Monday. And this is when I was living in, I had moved to Rewind. When I was 19, my brother had lost his job in Oakland, California, and I was staying with him at the time. And so then I had to move back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is where my mom is from. And so I was out there at that point in time during this process. And, if you're familiar with the Midwest, it's cheese, beer, bar food, all type of unhealthy food. And then not only that, the access to food is kind of limited. You know what I mean? Right. So when I did make a transition, it was more like I was paying $4 for almond milk. Out here, we pay $2 in California. Yep. So it's a big difference between, access to food. So fast forward to that point where I met the trainer gave me a plan, and the plan, it did have meat involved. However, it was something unique. It was offering me 5 servings of fruit, 5 servings of vegetables every day. And so, so what I did was I followed it. And the craziest thing is when people talk about, eating healthy is expensive. When I really think back on it, I was living off of my work study. I had an apartment. My rent was $50, and the rest of the money that I had was probably like for food and transportation and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. So I was probably spending about a good $50 a week just to maintain this plan. And I did it consistently. I got up every morning. I exercised. I ate what I was supposed to eat. And what happened was within a 3-month period of time, this was like the closest, I used to have a little bulge in my shirt, and my shirt was now flat. You know what I mean? And so during that time, I probably lost I went from 263 to about maybe about 250 to about 195. That's awesome. Right?
Yeah.
And then what happened was I did what everybody does when they get results. I was like, oh man, I was like, okay, I could go back to eating what I used to eat.
I can have that cheat meal.
Right. Yeah. And so that cheat meal transpired into something way, I ended up gaining about 45 of those pounds back because I stopped doing what I was doing that got me there. And by that time I had transitioned and I moved back to California. And then when I moved back to California, I was vegan, but I was a junk food vegan. So to all my junk food vegans that's listening out there, I feel you. They're better.
There's so many good junk food options now.
Well, they're making it easy to be a junk food vegan now because you're right. It is so much stuff, but I think the thing is like, it's not knocking anybody for what they eat. It's more of just understanding what level you want to be at. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was the junk food vegan, and then something happened to me where I went raw. I went raw, and then from that point on, I was like, okay, I did it once and I could do it again. But I know the secret formula is exercising. And unfortunately, most of our people that are on a plant-based diet, they think that they could just eat right and they don't got to exercise. And for me, I knew that adding that exercise element was kind of like the missing element. So I did it again. I got myself back down to 195, and some amazing things started to happen. And from that point on, I was like, wow, this was probably like about, if we going on the timeline, this was probably like about 2012, maybe. Nope. Let's see. Was it 2012? Maybe 2014. Okay. Yeah, it actually was 2014. Cause that's when I got the idea. Cause I was sitting on my personal training certification since I was in Wisconsin. And so I left Wisconsin in like 2010. And I was sitting on my personal training certification from that period of time, but I was working at the YMCA during that time. So when I was working at the YMCA, I was working there as a wellness coach. And so that was kind of like my testing grounds. I was kind of like, people would come and ask me for information. I give them information. Sometimes I wasn't following what they told me to follow as far as the guidelines for, standard American diet and stuff like that.
Right.
Because I was still on a plant-based diet, right? So then I had the idea. I was like, wow. I had been researching things about development and business and stuff like that. And then I also was on the path of like, you know how they say, if you do what it is that you love to do, you never have to work a day in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly wholeheartedly believe that. And I was reading Tim Ferriss, The 4-Hour Work Week. And I was like, man, this seems like something I want to do. And so I was trying to figure out, how can I fulfill a need? You know what I mean? And one of the things that I noticed is like when I was training, there was nobody talking about a plant-based diet and fitness. You know what I mean? Like it just wasn't, most of the people that was coming to me was like, yeah, my trainer told me to eat some eggs and some rice and some chicken. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, let me fulfill this need. And so then there was a place that was out here that was a co-op. It was like my first place that I started out at. It was Body Mechanics. And, what happened at that point was I had this formula in my head because I was like, it worked for me. So let me just start testing this out on other people. And so which was my first client, I had her, and she was like 195 when she first started. And then she got down to like she's like now currently at 147. And I was That's like, awesome. Wow, this works. And so then I decided to go ahead and start my own personal training business. I don't know if I answered like 5 or 6 questions, but
no, that's amazing. I mean, I just think your whole like just journey through all of that is just incredible. And like to kind of go back, Coach G, like you were saying that one of the first transitions you made after you regained the weight is that you did a raw vegan diet for a while. How long did you stay on that one?
The raw vegan diet was like 21 days. It was a 21 raw challenge.
Gotcha.
And it was crazy. You know what it allowed me to do? It allowed me to understand the healing effects of food. Because my brother, my little brother, he was in East Oakland at that time, and he got shot with an AK-47.
Wow. Right.
And the only reason why he survived was because he had a little more weight on him. You know what I'm saying? He was bigger. Mm-hmm. And the doctor said that if you would have been slimmer, then you probably would have died. And so it was during the time where I had this water filter, right? So I brought the water filter over to my brother's house because I was transitioning homes at that point in time. I was looking for a place to live, so I was kind of homeless. But I still had my brother's house to stay at. And so one of my friends, when I was working at a school during this time, at an after-school program, after I had transitioned from the YMCA, I went over to this after-school program, and I was teaching kids like about a raw food diet and how to eat raw and just like all type of vegan plant-based stuff, right? And so one of my coworkers was like, hey, you want to do this raw 21-day challenge? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so he had got this book, and we would meet up every Monday or every Sunday and every Wednesday, and we would cook, or not even cook, no pun intended. We would prepare food.
Right.
And and then the thing was, my little brother was eating the food too. Now by this time he was leaking. He had holes in his body. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Like it was oozing out goo and stuff like that. And so the thing about what I did with him was first thing I was like, okay, I was like, bro, you ain't drinking enough water. Because we already know that water is the key to life. You know what I mean? Water is responsible for every cellular function in our body. So what I did was I made him start drinking more water. And then his wounds started to close up. And then also he was eating some of the food that I was eating, because he was like, can I have some? And I was like, I'm not going to do my little brother like that. I was like, yeah, you can have some. Plus I was just trying to introduce him to some new stuff anyway. Because, he was on the fast food diet, come straight from East Oakland, eating Burger King, Jack in the Box, all the rest of that stuff. And so that was the first time that I got to see like the healing effects of a plant-based diet. So I did that too as well. And then that was during the time where, my 6-pack started to come in and all the rest of this stuff. And I was just starting my training journey as well. So that's what kind of like, that was my first exposure to like a raw food diet per se.
Awesome. Do you think the first thing you noticed was energy, or did you just overall just feel really good? Like what were some of the first things you noticed from doing that?
Well, first thing I noticed was bowel movements. I was more regular, and then I started investigating that to understand like how many bowel movements you're supposed to have per day. And I noticed that my bowel movements were regular, and you know what I mean? And then the energy happened. The energy was a crazy thing, because it was interesting, because when I first really got the scope of the energy piece of it, it happened through training. And I would come to these classes, right? Because they allowed us to come to classes at the place where I worked at. And I would just be working out with the regular people, and they'd be like, what is he on? You know what I mean? Like, right. and it was because like they'd be dead, breathing hard. And I'm over here, I'm just talking, I'm dancing, I'm having a good time. You know what I mean? Like, and that's when I started noticing like the energy piece, and then from then on, it was like, it was energy. And then I also noticed it in my ability to wake up. When I woke up with energy. I didn't feel tired or lethargic. So that was some of the benefits that I noticed.
No, that's amazing. I mean, I hear that so much, just like you were saying, just the power that food has to heal your body. And it really is incredible when you look at some of the things you just said that it helps you with. Like, I could say that that's probably the average symptom of like, just like an average American, right? Like they're exhausted all the time. They don't wake up feeling rested. The energy's down. Like they don't have enough energy to work out. And it's just because we're not getting that fuel in, because plants and food is medicine. And like, it really is amazing to hear stories like yours, because it really just backs that up, along with, the countless amount of science that backs it up. But it really is amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think too, at the end of the day, the one thing I tell people is, because when I first went vegan, which was like about close to like 9 years ago, I was a bit radical, and I apologize to anybody that I offended during that time, because I was
I think everybody goes through that, right?
I think what happens is when you first do it, you want everybody to know like, yo, you should do this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And some people just like resent it just because you're giving it. And one thing I learned about my approach is my approach changed. And what I tell people is now is like, I don't got to convince you. All I got to do is show you how good your body will feel while you're doing it, and you'll convince yourself.
No, it's powerful. It's very true though. That's amazing. So like, you started making all of those changes. You're seeing the benefits with your weight, with your energy, you're working out more, you're starting to use the training, right? So like, where did it all kind of go from there?
Well, let me touch in this part real quick, because I think when we talk about the transition, when I first transitioned, I started off and I cut out all meat, and I cut out everything except fish. And then I was like, okay, I don't need to eat fish. I was like, why am I eating fish? And then I was eating eggs and cheese. and then I just cut out eggs and cheese, and then I just kind of went totally plant-based. But guess what I was doing in the beginning, which is kind of funny when I think back about it. I was grinding up like vegetables and fruits together inside of like a smoothie and like drinking it. You know what I mean? Because I didn't really have the knowledge of like what it was to be on a plant-based diet. So,
Right.
so that was kind of like my entry point. But when it all started to make sense was after I did it to myself, but then at the point where I did it to someone else. You know what I mean? Like, and then I just started, because like for me, I'm just like a bookworm. Like, you know, I research everything. You know, I've been studying nutrition actually since I was in college, because the first form of nutrition that I had was regular standard American diet nutrition. And it was kind of, you know, like for me, when I was looking in the book, I just saw like advertisements for Coca-Cola. And I was like, why is there advertising for Coca-Cola in this nutrition book?
Insane.
You know, and for me, that kind of made my red light go off, because I know anytime you see something in the book, it's advertisement.
Yep.
And so, you know, I started researching like longevity, because also to add to that, it really clicked when I had several uncles die within like a 5 to 6 year span, you know, and all of them died of like preventable stuff. And so, you know, for me, that was like the red light, like, oh no, like, you know, these people in my family is dying, you know. And then my grandma died of, she had a stroke. My other grandma on my dad's side had colon cancer. And yeah, and that was kind of like the things that made it click, because I started to be like, you know, I was trying to figure out like long life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe the stories that they tell us about when they say 100 years old is the standard, or, you know, like 115 is the oldest. So I started researching that, and then I was looking up stuff that was like people were like 170, 150, 135. You know what I'm saying? Where you got like 6 generations of kids.
It's crazy.
And I was like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I started asking my friends, I was like, hey, how old do you want to live to be? And most of my friends was like, oh, I just want to live to be like 70 or 80, because by then my body's going to be breaking down and I'm be ready to go. And all my friends are going to be gone. And I was just like, wow, that's such a short side to life. And then also in 2006, I had went to Jamaica, right? And I seen this guy that was on the beach, and he was jogging and really, really putting some effort into jogging. And then what happened was I stopped him and I was like, hey, how old are you? And he was like, I'm 93.
Amazing.
And I was like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, that was like life goals.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be like that when I'm 93. And so that kind of was like that spark.
Just that longevity. Yeah, no, that is super interesting. And I'm glad that you brought up that point of what's commonly said by people. Cause I mean, I've heard this a million times too. It's like, oh, I only want to live to this age because I don't want to be breaking down or on medications or in a nursing home. Well, it's like, you got to take the steps so that doesn't happen. But I mean, the age potential is like, you're right. It's really crazy. Like to give up at 70, like you could potentially have 30, 40, 50 more years of life. Like that's right. So much. And it's, no, I love that you brought that up.
Well, and I believe like, I feel like 50 is just like the first quarter.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like yep. That's you only in the first quarter at 50. That's when everything starts to make sense. You know what I mean? Like that's when you lived enough life, you got enough experience, you able to develop more mental focus. You know what I mean? Like you can get into a routine easier. You know what I mean? Like it's less distractions. That's the way I feel about 50. You know, if you living it right.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, that's amazing. And like to kind of go back, Gary, you were talking about just whenever you were making that transition and you started to understand, like seeing how your family, how their health history, that obviously could be you if you didn't make changes. So like, well, once you did start making those changes, did you have any struggles with keeping it, or because you saw how their health was going, that was enough for you to stay on track? It really wasn't a struggle to implement different kinds of foods.
Well, for me, I'm the type of person, like once I find a logical reason to do something, I don't got to look back.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like, so some people be like, oh, I need to do it slow. And I look at it like, as I get older and more mature, sometimes you just got to cut stuff off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you can't leave the door open, because when you leave the door open, you allow yourself to have a foot to come back. And believe it or not, something is always going to walk through that door when you leave it open.
100%.
You know, and so for me, it was easier because I just made up my mind. Now when it comes to, like, you know, family, I still got family to this day that fights me, no matter how much evidence I give them, no matter how much information I share, you know, that still fight me today about having a plant-based diet. You know, so one thing I learned is that some people you're just not going to convince. But for me, I would rather be on the side of, like, you know, I'm just living by example. Like, I'm not in the hospital telling people to put prayers up for me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm healthy, I'm happy, my mind is functioning properly. So I think the way that I go about it right now is just kind of like leading by example.
Absolutely. No, I'm with you on that. It's really the best way that you can educate others, to just lead by example. And so where in all of this timeline did maybe just a glimpse of inspiration show up to, you know, maybe I should open a plant-based gym, like it's not really being done? Or did you always kind of have that vision of you wanted to create a gym?
Well, it's funny that you asked that, because it happened. The last 6 months has been, I'm just gonna say, it's been amazing. You know what I mean? Like when I realized, like, all the stuff that happened to me within the 6-month period of time, it was amazing. But it also became amazing because I aligned myself properly. But to rewind back to the question, when I started my company, I was always under other companies. So, like, when I was at the other gym, I was kind of like the plant-based dude. You know what I mean? So you know, even during that time, I was still able to affect a lot of people. I affected a lot of different trainers. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just, for me, it's just like, it's not knocking somebody for their habits, but it's just getting them to introduce new habits into their life, right? So I was always that guy at whatever facility that I was at, right? And the thing is, the people that were working with me, they seen all the results. So it's like, it's certain things you can't argue with. You know what I mean? Like, if I say, hey, you know, I'm going to get you $1 million, and I show you 10 people that I've gotten that same $1 million, that I helped them get that $1 million. If you want to do something, eventually you're going to listen.
Right.
You know, and my numbers kind of spoke for itself. But actually, this was the factor. So I'm pretty sure you're familiar with 6-week challenges. You've seen them all over the place. Mm-hmm. Me and one of my friends that I work with, his name is Alan, we had this meal plan, right? And it was a meat-based meal plan. And at first I was like, you know what? Let me, and this is when I was at the other facility. So just to give you a visual, I was working at the other facility. I decided to do a 6-week challenge, and I had like about 50 people that signed up, and probably like about 45 of those people actually did the program. And so what I did was I made an executive decision, because at first I was like, okay, I don't know if I could put everybody on a plant-based diet. I don't know if they'd be down with it. You know what I mean? And so on and so on. And so I had the meat-based plan, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a plant-based plan. So I had hired a registered dietitian that was a plant-based registered dietitian. She helped me come up with this plan, right? And so I put 40 people on a plant-based diet during the 6-week challenge. Okay. And oh my goodness.
So only five decided to go with meat then.
Huh?
Oh, so 5 of them decided to go.
No, just five people dropped off.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Pretty much everybody that was doing it was on a plant-based diet.
Nice.
So, and if they weren't telling me that. So, you know, so at the end of the day, what happened was I had people like this one guy lost 40 pounds. Another lady lost 33 pounds.
Amazing. Another
person lost 25 pounds. Another person lost 23, 22, 19, 10, 7. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just, all these numbers was just crazy. And one of my friends was like, man, you need to start your own gym. And I was like, nah. I was like, you know, let me try to build my thing up where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was just like, okay, cool. Let me just build it up where I'm at. And that wasn't even an option. It was a thought, but it wasn't really an option, right? But I had all this social proof. So I was like, okay, I could do this. I could scale this. And so what happened was this year I was planning on going to Mexico. This was going to be like my first trip to Mexico. And, I was looking at places. I was looking at just different places because I was like, let me go out there and see what's available. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I looked, and there was this place and I was like, wow. I was like, this is perfect. And so, I had some self-limiting beliefs. I was like, am I going to be able to do it on my own? You know what I mean? Like, am I going to be able to do this? Are people going to transition with me? Am I going to lose all my clients? You know what I'm saying? Like, it was so many things that happened. And so just to take you through that process, so I put in an application. And then first I was worried about credit. You know what I'm saying? I was like, okay, let me see what my credit ain't. It's not horrible, but it ain't the best. And so I was like, okay, let me see what I could do to get this squared off. So I filled out the application. The guy that rented me the place, he was asking me for everything under the sun. He was like, man, let me get your son's blood so I can have him as a sacrifice. And I was just like, wow. And so I was talking to one of my close friends and I was like, man, I was like, I don't think this is worth it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, I was actually about to quit. And she was like, no. She was like, just go through with the process and think positively about it. And so from that day on, I was like, you know what? You're right. Because, when you get stressed and you try to make decisions, that's usually the worst time to make decisions.
Right.
So I was stressed out about it. During this time, I was probably training about 45 to 50. I had like about 50 people on my roster of clients.
Man.
And so you could imagine what my stress level was like during that time.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go through with it. And so I went through with the process. I gave the guy everything that he needed. And bam, April 15th, I got the keys. And so during that time, I was shocked. I was like, wow. I was like, this is about to go through. But then on the flip side to that, I had to come up with my money to move in. So, I had to do floors. I had to do everything in this place to get equipment. So I raised like about $21,000, you know what I'm saying? Cause I did another challenge, raised about $21,000. And then I got myself into this place and I decked it out, did everything that I needed to do. And that was kind of like my thing. And then I gave my place I was at 30-day notice. And, from there on, that's what kind of like spurred it. That's what started it. But then I also had to make a decision to cancel my Cancun trip. So I canceled my Cancun trip. I just got a flight credit and I was like, okay, bam, this is where the universe is taking me. This is what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so that's how I kind of opened up PlantBased Fitness.
That's cool. So the open date was, well, it wouldn't have been April because you had to get everything set, right? So shortly after that?
Yeah. So May 15th is when I transitioned everybody over here. Mm-hmm. So I was over in Piedmont, which is in Oakland, and I moved over to Park Boulevard. And so I transitioned everybody. It was funny because when I was doing consults, like I had stuff on the window, like it was blocked. The window was blocked off. The place looked like it was boarded up. Not boarded up, but it didn't look like it was training going on in there.
Yeah.
And then I had got my window decals and everything. So everything kind of fell into place.
That's awesome. That's awesome you were able to take your clients with you because I could see where a lot of people wouldn't let you do that since it was so many.
Well, the thing is, those clients were under my business.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So that was the benefit to it because basically what I was a business. I was just operating under a bigger entity.
Got it. Yeah. No, that's incredible. And obviously you've had a lot of really positive exposure in the media, like on the Veg News, which is, I'm sure the feedback from that has been just crazy.
Yeah. Well, so, I want to do a little quick plug real quick. Everybody, if you get a chance, go check out the Veg News magazine article. Right now at the moment, it has about 2,500 shares. So this was the whole thing too. Like I got some exposure from them. A lady hit me up out the blue. And she was like, yeah, I want to do the story on you. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I did the story and then that kind of like just blew up. But the flip side to that, is I had some people that were kind of like hopping on my post, like saying, hey, that's nice, but this gym is better. And I was just like, I was like, I didn't even comment. I was really humble and I didn't comment on it. But that was kind of unique to me, you know what I mean? Just like having my first little bit of exposure and then that happening. But it really turned out to be the best, because when I went back to go look at the article recently, it had 1,910 shares. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know it got that many. And so I just started looking at the different articles that were on there, and it actually was a highly shared article.
That's awesome.
And so then I went back to my social media and I was like, hey, we had 1910 shares. Let's try to get this to 3,000. And so people just start like sharing it like wildfire. And I'm always, I always try to remain, humble about it, because, people don't have to share it. And obviously, what I got there, they like it, so they are sharing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's amazing. And obviously any way to get the word out with what you're doing, because it is a very positive thing that you are doing and really impacting so many lives. So I mean, I just think that it's amazing. And like, just through the process, Coach G, of just opening the gym and getting everything set up, what were probably the biggest struggles besides having to just kind of get everything up front to even get the building? Like maybe some of the behind the scenes struggles that people might not know were so hard with starting the gym.
Well, I think the biggest thing is like, number one is probably going to be marketing. You know what I mean? You gotta establish yourself, as far as, who you market into and stuff like that. So that's probably one of the biggest things, because people aren't just going to walk into your gym. You know what I mean? Like, they have to have a reason to come there. So I think that's one of the biggest things. And one of the biggest things too, that's behind the scenes, taking care of yourself. It's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that don't take good care of themselves, and you can only attract what you are. Exactly. You know what I mean? So if your health is not good, then how can you expect to attract other people to give them good health? So that was one of the things that kind of like I put a major focus on, was getting myself into good shape, making sure that I was eating properly, making sure that I was exercising. And then the next level, which is the behind the scenes, which is self-limiting beliefs. Like one thing that I noticed is, like, even if you are the most positive person ever, you will always have that one doubt. And I'm gonna tell everybody that's listening to this right now, don't listen to it, because it's fear, false evidence appearing real. And if you allow that negative self-talk to take over your mind, it will stop you from moving forward. It will paralyze you. So that was one of the behind the scenes thing too. And then just like, because like at the end of the day, I didn't have any loans. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have an investor. You know what I mean? Like I funded everything that I'm doing. I funded this, with the help of, I did have one person that kind of helped me out, but it wasn't like nothing super major. You know what I mean? So like I did it basically, with the help of my own effort. So, taking care of yourself, not having self-limiting beliefs, and marketing are kind of like three of the major things that I would say to anybody that's looking to embark on a business. And then also too, making sure that what you have is what people want. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because like you could say, hey, I'm going to have this gym and it's going to be this and it's going to be that and it's going to be that. But you might also throttle yourself down into a hole. Because if people don't want what you're offering, then, you're not going to have anybody to serve. So I think that's the biggest thing too, as far as like my four behind the scene takeaways.
No, I love that. I mean, yeah, 100%. And like, since you've been open, how's it been? I know you said that it's growing like crazy, but I mean, I can't even imagine how just like life altering it's been for you, or just always inspiring you. Cause I mean, you're seeing people that are really transforming their lives because, like I kind of mentioned in your intro, it's not just fitness, it's mindset, it's nutrition, it's all of these things that combine and really make true health. So you're going to be seeing so many major transformations in people, and that ultimately is going to change families, because these are people that have kids. This is how they're going to start to raise their kids. Like that's you, just like those are family trees that you're affecting. And I'm sure that just like a wave of gratitude every day when you're at work.
Yeah, it is. Well, this is the thing. So what happened was, I came up with a mission, and this happened probably like about maybe in June. This is before my grand opening, and so my mission was to affect 100,000 people in the Bay Area through generational health.
Love it.
And so that kind of tied into all of the stuff that you just said, as far as like with, affecting families, affecting kids, affecting everybody. Because I have a son myself, and I seen the benefits of raising him on a plant-based diet. You know what I mean? Like, he's super sharp, he's super smart, his vocabulary is amazing, he can draw, you know what I'm saying? He's active, he's confident, you know what I mean? It's so many things that I seen just from him having a plant-based diet. And I do attribute it to that, because if we talk about energy, what you put in your tank is what you get out,
Yep.
And so one thing I seen is that when we was giving him the best food, his performance level and his cognition is crazy. Also, he had a, nice little growth spurt. So he's nice and big and strong. So, and he's barely sick. So it's just like, a lot of those things, I think are benefits that people could have generationally if they do make a transition. But what I wanted to say was too, about the mindset. The mindset piece kind of came like by just me being that positive force in people's lives. You know what I mean? Like, the mindset portion kind of came from me just like understanding how to like trick people's minds into doing what they need to do. You know what I mean? And so one thing that I always think about is like this: if a person can't break something down to you in simple terms, they don't know it.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
Right. And you know what I'm saying? Because like sometimes people hide behind big words. And what I like to do is I like to take big, giant concepts and condense them into small, simple, easy things. You know what I mean? Because that's how I train myself to be able to learn it. Because, most people aren't going to know what a biceps brachii is, or they're going to know it as your bicep. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not going to know what a latissimus dorsi is. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to know the dictionary Latin terms of those stuff. So you have to be able to break it down to stuff people can understand. And so, with mindset, the reason why I had to reformulate my business was because I started noticing that like doing the challenges kind of exposed me to people's mindset. You know what I mean? One thing I noticed is that people would do something for a period of time, like let's say 6 weeks. And then after the 6 weeks, they would fall off. They would either quit, gain the weight back, or go back to their own habits or to their old habits. And so one thing that I started to understand, I was like, okay, wait, what is this that's making these people fall off? And I was like, they don't got the proper mindset going into it. And so then I started developing like these mindset courses within my programming, and I start seeing a change in these people. You know what I mean? And then I also started doing like case studies. I was like, okay, what is the mindset that my longest standing clients have, or my clients that stick to things have? You know what I'm saying? Like, I started to break that down. And so then I was like, okay, the thing that everybody is missing when it comes to fitness, and I'm not saying everybody, because some people do mindset training, but in my area, the thing that I noticed that was missing is that most people are not coaching people's brain. And the brain is like a muscle too as well. So it's like, if you don't use it, you lose it. Right. And the same thing about that is like, if you're not training your mind to get the new body, then your body is going to go back to where the same level that the old mind is at.
Yep.
And so that's when I started kind of like hitting people up with the mindset training, because I was like, okay, because I know in order for you to stick to this, I need to be able to program your mind to be able to do what you need to do, Absolutely. And so that was kind of how the mindset training I got birthed.
No, I love that. I mean, yeah, because it definitely is 100% necessary if you do want to make a long-term change, not just like you said, like a 6-week program and then fall off. Like you have to have it. And I love that you're training that. And like something I wanted to ask too about Coach G is something that I read in that Veg News article. It was just talking about your desire to bring holistic wellness to underserved communities. So like, I just wanted to hear maybe what your goals with that are, and like, if you've started the process with that at all. Yeah.
So some of the goals, 2019 is going to be an amazing year for me. and plant-based fitness too, is because I got a lot of things like on New Year's, I'm doing a goal setting workshop on the 30, I think it's the 31st. This month goes to the 31st,
awesome.
right?
Yeah.
31st. And it's from 10 o'clock to 12.
Is that your gym?
Yeah, it's gonna be at my gym, and it's just
you should live stream it too, unless it's paid.
You know what? I might do that.
Do it, because I'll jump on. That'd be awesome.
Okay, cool. Yeah, for sure. And so what's happening is I'm doing goal setting. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm doing a bunch of different workshops. I'm doing a goal setting thing. I'm just kind of getting people's mindset into getting out of the whole holiday season thing, like oh, it's the New Year's resolutions. You know what I mean? No, you should be doing that before the new year.
Yep.
You should be planning your year before the year happens. And so that's one of the things that I'm doing. That's like I'm building community within community. We got plant-based kids. So plant-based kids is a way for parents that need a break, that want to drop their kids off. We do it like quarterly. And so that's a way for people to drop their kids off from like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then they could just go on a date, do what they need to do. Also, too, I'm doing, nutrition classes. You know what I'm saying? So those are another way that we can infiltrate the community and kind of like, get people's minds lifted on certain things. And so sometimes they're paid events, sometimes they're free events. But that's tricky, too, as well, because it's like, one thing I learned in 2019 or 2018 is people don't respect free. So
definitely not.
We're trying to find that way to make it like donation based, or to make it to where people give something, because it's just when you give something, you get something. You know what I mean? Like you have to give energy in order to receive it. You know what I mean? Like so, it's like nothing starts unless you give, and giving is something that I think that we all could do better, especially in these times and days and stuff. So, that's one way. Let's see, what else are we doing? Those are the two main ways, but we got a whole plan of development as far as like, I'm going to be doing some different workshops that I'm going to have around spices, around plant-based food. I plan on doing a health fair in my facility.
That's awesome.
So that's a whole nother level to the game. So, 2019 is going to be a good year. We're definitely going to be getting more out in the community. I did a talk when I went to this place called City Fest, which was not too long ago. I was a guest speaker there. So, and then what I try to do too is, I try to just provide people with free content. You know what I mean? Like tips and tricks and, just different things that people could do on their own. You know what I mean? Because I think the biggest thing is like, get started.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, don't wait. And I think a lot of people in the community, they wait for something bad to happen, especially in my community too. We wait for bad things to happen before we take action. And I think the biggest thing that we need to do, the way you learn, is by taking action.
100%. And I love that. I think all of that's incredible. And all of it. The plant-based kids program, that's genius. All of it's just super inspiring. So definitely respect what you're doing just as a whole, and especially in the community. I think that's amazing. And you just gave a whole bunch of stuff that you're working on, but is there anything else that you guys are doing in 2019 or just in the future that you want to put out there and share, or just everything?
Yeah. So what we got going on right now is, if you live in the Bay Area, I got this program called the 28-Day Reboot. It's a way for people to get themselves squared away, and it's the first phase of a 4-phase process of people to get themselves ready to make change. So what people would do is they would come in. I have a course set up for them. It's online. They would then work out with me 3 times a week, and then it basically facilitates transformation. So the goal of the 28-Day Reboot is to get anybody that's ready to make change back on track. One other thing I got going on at the first of the year, the 28-Day Reboot starts January 1st. One other thing that I got going on is I'm going to be doing a detox. So the detox is going to also start the first of the year too as well. So that's going to be my 28-day detox. So it's kind of like a comprehensive guide of like food, mindset, habits, exercise, everything that a person would need to be successful at detoxing. Because I also believe, it's just like over our course in life, we develop viruses in our program, and so, and that could be in the form of like bad food, any type of chemicals we might have absorbed. So we need to detox. So I created the 28-day program that's kind of, it's life changing. I've ran a couple people through it. They were my beta testers. And so those are the two programs that I got going on right now, are my 28-day reboot and my 28-day detox.
Awesome. No, that both of those things sound amazing. And and like for the people that do want to check that out or keep up with that as you start to like post more, and then obviously keep up as you do stuff like, when you put the live stream and the goal setting, if you do that, like what is the best way for people to follow you on social media? That way they can keep up with everything that you're doing, especially if they live in the Bay Area as well.
So if you live in the Bay Area, I'm gonna give you a real simple way to do it. The first thing is you could go to my Facebook page. It's PlantBased Fitness, and you can click the button at the top that says send a message. Send me a message if you got questions, if you want to know more about my program. Everything is pretty much there. The next place to go is my website, which is www.fitness.com. And then that'll be a way that you can find out more about the 28-day reboot. I'm also on Instagram. You can find me Plant, PLANT, the letter B as in boy, fit, and then one. Those are the places that people can find me on social media. And if you live in the area, those are the three ways to contact me. We are by appointment only, because at the end of the day, I do want to put this out there. I only want to work with people that are serious about making change. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of choices of things that you could do, but for me, I found out that we work best with the people that are serious about it.
Definitely. No, I love that. And I mean, I think what you're doing is incredible, Gary, and I'm excited just to share it with as many people as possible. So I'll definitely put all of your social media links in the show notes. That way people can just go click and give you an ad.
Well, I was going to say too, and this is what we could do as a special thing for your show. Anybody that submits the code PlantBased Casey they'll receive 15% off of any program.
Perfect. Awesome. No, I'll put that in the show notes as well. No, I appreciate that. So you guys definitely take advantage of that and take advantage of Coach G's expertise, and shoot us a message if you decide to do that too. I'd love to know who checks it out. So no, thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah. And Coach G, just closing question that I ask every guest. Okay. But if you just had one piece of advice for the audience, maybe it's something that's been your own biggest takeaway through your wellness journey so far. But if you just had one piece of advice to give, what would it be?
One piece of advice to give. My one piece of advice to give would be take action. You know what I mean? Like it because you can spend your life waiting for things to come. Like whenever I hear people talk about like, oh, I'm gonna wait to the 1st or I'm gonna wait to Monday. You don't know if you're gonna have that time. You know what I mean? Like I've seen a lot of people. It was interesting. It was a guy that was at the barbershop, and I had been talking to him, and I told him to come see me. And he was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to come and see you, 3 weeks later. Oh, I'm going to come see you. Yeah. A month later, he just didn't say anything to me at that time. And then my barber told me, he was like, man, you remember what's the name? I was like, yeah. He was like, man, he died. And I was like, I was blown away from it, because what I thought, I was like, man, I could have helped this dude. You know what I mean? Like I could have helped this man add more years to his life. But the thing was, he wasn't ready to take action. And to anybody that's listening right now, remember, you only have to spend a total of 2.5 hours every week to become healthy. To be in the best shape of your life, it takes you 2.5 hours a week. If you calculate that in the amount of hours, it's 234 hours in a year that it would take you to become and be in the best health of your life. That's like 2.86% of your total year. So that's all you got to spend to be healthy. So at the end of the day, you have time. The key is just taking action. So that would be my my one thing that I would give to everybody is take action. Do something. Don't wait. Don't wait for something bad to happen. Be proactive and not reactive.
Absolutely. No, I mean, that's perfect advice. I mean, I very well said and 100% agree. And just Coach G, thank you so much for everything that you do. Your work is, I mean, for real, just super inspiring. And just thank you so much for taking time to come on. I loved having you.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you for reaching out, and much success. And I'm definitely sure we'll probably be linking up again.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you loved my conversation with Gary. He's doing so much positive work, so be sure to give him a follow on social media to keep up with everything that he's been working on. You can find his social media links that we talked about in the episode in the show notes, but you can also find them on my website as well at drcaseyjohnson.com. That's drkaseyjohnson.com. Click on the Listen tab. Then from there, you'll be able to see all of the past guests that have come on the Unlock Wellness podcast, read a little bit about each guest, and be able to click on their social media links, websites, all of that. So all of Gary's information can be found on my site as well. If you guys loved today's episode with Gary, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Thank you guys so much again for tuning into today's episode. I hope you loved it. I hope it inspires you. And most importantly, I hope you take action.